I'm Angel Menudo, a licensed clinical social worker, certified clinic coach, and a little woo with a passion for manifestation and internal family systems. Through the years, I noticed that New Age manifestation practices relied on spiritual bypassing and positive thinking only, instead of getting to the root of potential blocks and barriers or building self-worth. Then I found internal family systems, and it had changed the way I saw manifestation. Each week, I will discuss how to use IFS to tap into your true self energy, build your self-worth, and work with those parts that are sabotaging your manifestations and, frankly, your life. This is not law of attraction. This is getting to the root of what's blocking your manifestations so that you can be open to the universe and manifest the life you've always wanted. So join me on this journey to learn how to live in alignment with your true self and break free from limiting beliefs, expectations, societal pressures, and the other things that are keeping you stuck from living your best life. It's not a coincidence you're here. Welcome to the True Self Manifestation Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of the True Self Manifestation Podcast. So this episode, we're going to talk about true self. Like, what is true self? How we can get into true self? All of the good things, all about it, and how it really relates to manifestation. So before we even do that, though, I wanted to tell you this quick little story. And it's really kind of funny because earlier in the week, I was saying that I was going to go on and record this podcast. And I kept doing all of the things to distract myself, to not do it. You know, just like, oh, I need to do this laundry, and oh, maybe I should clean this thing or whatever. And I really had to stop for a second and realize, like, what in the world was going on here. And the whole thing was that I was kind of feeling stuck. I wasn't sure exactly, like, what I wanted to talk about this episode, and I kept using that as an excuse. However, when I actually kind of tuned in to true self me and tuned into that part that was actually like distracting me and trying to get it so that I was not actually going to do anything, I realized that there is a part in there that was afraid. So this part was just full of fear around putting myself out there. And I asked this part, because this is what we do, right? In parts work is we talk to the parts. And so I asked this part, I'm like, well, where is this fear coming from? And you would not believe it. But 7th grade pops into my mind. I'm going to tell you something. Friggin' 7th grade, okay? I would love to hear how many people out there have had issues with the 7th grade. How many people, because honestly, my friend and I talk about this quite often. The idea that 7th grade, honestly, is like horrendous and like 7th grade should not exist. But how, especially for girls in 7th grade, it's this like horrendous period of time in our lives. And I was shocked to find out that that was this part's reason, because this part is like, well, remember 7th grade? And so I had to talk to the part, right? I had to reassure the part and validate the part and tell the part, like, it's okay, right? Like, it's okay. Actually, we're not in 7th grade anymore, and we're much older now, and I got you, and it's all right. But I wanted to share that because a lot of times we don't realize, like, it took me a minute to realize what was happening, but we don't realize what is actually going on until we tune in and we find out, and it's often not what we actually think it's going to be. Because we have the logical part of us who is always trying to figure things out and to come up with ideas and excuses and reasons and all of this stuff. And our brains love a story, so it goes with it. But we don't know what's actually happening until we tune into the part that is feeling some type of way and ask it. Because I would never have thought of 7th grade. I just wanted to share that with you real quick. And I also wanted to ask, like I had mentioned before, what has anybody else out there had issues with the 7th grade? Like, how was your 7th grade experience? I would really, really love to know. You can DM me on Instagram and tell me. You can email me at angel@trueselfmanifestation.com. Honestly, I would love to hear about this. So please share with me. Like, was 7th grade hell for you too? Pivoting back now to the main thing here, true self. First of all, what we're usually doing in this world is we are searching for answers. We're always searching, not just when we're manifesting, but really throughout life. Like, our life is just full of like searching for, I don't know, the meaning, the purpose, all of that. And oftentimes we are feeling so stuck. That's the whole thing, right? We feel so stuck. We feel like there's more out there and we can't seem to figure it out. And that's because it's possibly the parts trying to figure it out and they don't quite know. Or it's parts blocking us. So what if I told you that you had the answers all along and they were just getting clouded by preconceived notions, societal expectations, and limiting beliefs? But when we're able to separate ourselves from all of that noise, we have the ability to see things clearly and to get the answers. We have that ability to access our true self. And what true self is just another name for our authentic self, our higher self, our intuition. And that's when we are in true self, is when we can actually be open to the universe and we can receive like those intuitive hits and know that we are actually like either on the right path or maybe you're on the wrong path but need to go on to another path. So what I wanted to do today was to talk about what true self is and how we can actually figure out if we're in true self. Or, in other words, if we're actually hitting, right? Like if we're actually getting or tapping into our intuition. So with IFS, internal family systems, parts work, we know we're in true self by the 8 C's. And that is curiosity, calm, clarity, connectedness, confidence, courage, creativity, or compassion. In other words, are you feeling open? Are you open to possibilities? Open to what is coming up for you at that moment? And if you're noticing other thoughts, other feelings that aren't one of those 8 C's or that feeling of openness, those are parts. So anxious is a part. Angry, part. Sadness is a part. Shame or guilt? Definitely parts. This means that we are not in true self. We are not tapping into our intuition. When we are noticing those 8 C's, it does not need to be all of them at once. You just need one at the very least. That is when we are accessing our true self energy. So I want you to think about a time when you felt one of these 8 C's. When was there a time you were maybe curious about something? You felt confident, creative. You maybe had a sense of calmness come over you. That is what true self is. That's your intuition. Can you remember that feeling? Can you recreate it? What would you need to be able to do that again? Now I want you to just get quiet for a few moments. Think about that time you felt like you were in true self. Really notice it. Notice how you were feeling. Can you feel it again right now? What does it feel like? Maybe you feel relaxed. Maybe you've noticed less tension in your body. Maybe a little tingly. Possibly less noise in your mind. Again, true self. This is true self. This feeling, this energy shift you feel when in true self, this is you getting in tune with the universe. And this is where the magic happens. So when I tap into true self energy, I drop into my body. I notice sensations, thoughts, feelings. I ask any parts that appear to be there to step aside. A really great thing, I'll actually put a link in the show notes, is there is a guided meditation that Richard Schwartz did. He is the founder of Internal Family Systems. And it's on Insight Timer, which actually is an app that's free. You can pay for a version of it, but there are so many free things on it, tons of free things. And it's really cool to check out. Anyway, he has a whole bunch of internal family system guided meditations on there that he does. But what I want to talk about is the path. And it's super helpful because he walks you through this idea of this path, like in a forest. And as you're going through, you are unblending from your parts. So you will actually ask the parts to step aside so that you can access your true self. And that's what I'm talking about here. When we are accessing our true self, it means that the parts are not in control. Our true self is in control. And so when I know I'm in true self energy, I notice almost kind of like goosebumps all over me, like a subtle vibration. And that's my cue. You could be different, which is why it's a great idea to practice this often. So then you can decipher like what is true self and like what's a part. And just so you're aware, like we cannot actually be in just true self 24/7. Our parts are there for a reason. However, now we can be self-led. And that means true self is in the lead and the parts are helping true self navigate through life. When we're tapping into true self energy, we're opening up ourselves to the universe, our spirit guides, whoever is there trying to help us out. And we are paying attention to those clues that remind us if we're on the right path, or maybe tell us we need to pivot. And that way, we're no longer actually being ran by our parts. And that's what's the really cool thing about this, is that with manifestation, we need to be able to tap in to our intuition so that we are seeing beyond what we physically know, what we actually think we know or anything, right? And our parts only know what we know. But when we are in our true selves and we are tapping into that, like that intuitive knowing, that is when we're able to access the universe. And that's when we can listen to see what the universe is trying to offer us, provide, tell us if we're, again, like we're on the right track. And that's how we manifest, because we need to have this energy that is not just our own energy, but like our intuitive, true self knowing energy is beyond us. And how magical is that? I mean, it's amazing, absolutely amazing. And so when we're trying to put things out into the universe that we want to bring back into us, we need to be there. We need to be able to tap into that intuitive knowing, that true self, without the parts in the way, blocking us or sabotaging us. And then we can follow and let the magic happen. I often get asked, how do I know it's intuition? Now, a great way to figure this out is notice if there's a feeling around what you suspect is your intuition. What is that feeling? Oftentimes we think it's intuition, but really it's anxiety. Remember, our parts are always trying to keep us safe, and so that anxious part might come up. People confuse anxiety with intuition all of the time. With intuition, there isn't a feeling. There's a knowing. It'll come in like it was meant to be there. It'll just pop in. It'll just be like, that's right. There will be a calmness to this. And calmness is one of those 8 C's of true self. And so when we can identify what is that intuitive hit and what could be anxiety or something else, another part, that's going to help us figure out if we're like on the right track for manifesting what we need. And then we're able to keep going with what we are supposed to be doing, right? And a lot of times, though, like our parts can get scared because they're like, oh crap, I don't know what in the world is happening here. Fear of the unknown. Our parts are like, no. Our intuition, though, isn't going to care about that because it knows that this is right. And that's the important piece. Things can be maybe scary. You might be able to say like, oh, I got this hit that I needed to quit my job. Or I keep getting this sense, this hit, or this intuitive hit that I need to move. Now, parts might come in afterwards and say, oh, yeah, but what? Wait, what about this? What about that? Coming up with a million excuses. Why? That's when you have to really evaluate. And that's when we can also talk to those parts, help them through all of this, and ask them to step aside and do all of those things so that we can actually do what we are intuitively told from the universe that is going to put us on the path that we need to be on, or to tell us that we're on the right path. And how I had mentioned earlier in the podcast in the very beginning, and I told that story about how I was hesitating recording this podcast. And when I finally tuned in and asked that part what was going on, and 7th grade popped up, that is something that we need to take into consideration when we're trying to manifest. What are the things that we don't even realize are actually keeping us from manifesting what we want? What are the parts getting held up on? What are they kind of stuck in? And that will be for future episodes where I can get more in depth as to what parts are usually there that kind of sabotage us or block our manifestations, which they're not doing it on purpose by any means. They're really trying to survive. But it is good to know that when we're trying to tap into our true self and we're noticing other things come up, or if we think it's an intuitive hit, but it's really not, it might be something that is coming from the past that we might consciously think, oh, that's nothing anymore, or I'm over it, quote unquote. The parts aren't over it. So just keep that in mind. And like I said, I'll get more into that in future episodes with the parts. But today, this was all about talking about how to tap into your true self energy, how to decipher between true self and parts, and what are the characteristics of true self so that you can know that you're actually in true self and it is your intuition and it's not a part. So remember those 8 C's, which is that calmness, clarity, connectedness, curiosity, confidence, courage, creativity, compassion. I probably repeated because I had to look at, I always have to look it up. I can never remember it off the top of my head. I will come up with every single C word under the sun that will not be that. So a lot of times I say openness. Do you feel open? That is how, in other words, open. Do you feel open? Then you know you're in true self. But the other things are really cool to just, play around with, especially like if you're creative. That is like when you're tapping into your true self. What makes you curious about things? You're tapping into true self. Stuff like that. So, hey, play around with that. Like I said, also check out that, I'll put the link in the show notes for Insight Timer for that guided meditation I was talking about as well. But have fun with it. And any questions, any thoughts, feel free. Like I said, you can DM me on Instagram at True Self Manifestation. You can email me at angel@trueselfmanifestation.com. I will put the links in the show notes as well. And I really hope you enjoyed this episode. I love sharing these things, and I hope that they are helpful. So keep listening. Thanks. Thank you for listening to the True Self Manifestation Podcast. Check out the show notes for any links mentioned here, and while you're at it, grab my free mini course on how to manifest without the self-sabotage. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode, and please leave a review where you listen to podcasts. And if you love this episode, share it with a friend. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon.